Speaking of rappers,
Sean Combs. Did you know he's in trial? That they just gave the case to the jury?
yes.
Okay, so let's. I want to just go over the circumstances so people understand. So Sean Combs, also known as Diddy, is facing a federal criminal trial in New York on charges, including racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution. The trial began in May of 2025, is a high-profile case. Here are the key circumstances and elements. The charges, allegations. On the racketeering conspiracy, the prosecutors alleged that Combs led a criminal enterprise that involved kidnapping, drugging, and coercing women into sexual activities, sometimes using firearms or threats of violence.
I thought that they dropped the kidnapping.
Well, this is the allegations.
Okay.
Sex trafficking. The government claims Combs forced or coerced women, including his former girlfriends, to participate in drug-fueled sexual marathons known as freak-offs with male sex workers. Transportation for prostitution. Combs is accused of transporting individuals across state lines for the purposes of engaging in prostitution. The evidence presented. There was nearly 30 to 34 witnesses, including former partners, employees, and they testified about graphic and disturbing events detailing coercion, violence, and cover-ups. There's surveillance footage, videos, including one showing Combs attacking his ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, in a hotel hallway. These were all shown to the jury. Text messages and documentations. Jurors reviewed messages and receipts related to interstate trips and the organizing of sexual encounters. And then there was a huge raid where the authorities found drugs, weapons, and about 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant. And they're saying that these were used for the freak-offs. Here's the defense's position. Consensual relationships. The defense is arguing that all of his sexual activities were consensual. Basically, Combs is a swinger who lived a lifestyle involving group sex and drug use, but not criminal enterprise. They acknowledged that he he committed acts of domestic violence, but emphasized that these are not the charges at hand and that Combs was going to fight this. And then they also, kind of attacked the prosecution, saying that that this case is really motivated by money, referencing large civil settlements involving key witnesses. So they closed on Friday. And the prosecutor's closing was that basically Sean Combs used his power, money, and influence to coerce and intimidate women, relying on a small army of employees to carry out and cover up the crimes. They talk about witness tampering. They highlighted his attempts to influence and silence. Witnesses included recorded phone calls and outreach to former employees. And they asked them, they urged them to convict. The defense's closing was a little bit different. They say a swinging lifestyle is not a crime. The defense maintained that Combs was part of the consensual swinger lifestyle and that the prosecution's interpretation risked criminalizing such behavior for everyone. Because all swingers were there. Lack of criminal enterprise. Combs' lawyer argued there was a gaping lack of evidence that this was a criminal enterprise and that the case was about money, not justice. And they also acknowledged that, Combs had some personal failings about his domestic violence. I mean, he had to, and it's on the video, but insisted that these did not amount to a crime. If he's convicted, he's going to face a minimum sentence of 15 years on a sex trafficking count.
Okay, but stop reading and
Okay.
tell me what all that meant. Like, can't you be a swinger and be criminal at the same time?
Can you be a swinger and a criminal? Yes.
Yeah. So how is that a defense?
I think what he's trying to do is that he's trying to show that his intent was not of criminal means, but of consensual means. I mean, these types of cases, when you're talking about sex trafficking.
Can you be a criminal if you love someone that you're abusing?
Yes, absolutely.
I don't understand the defense.
I think that the defense is trying to say that this was the party lifestyle, that everybody came into this environment understanding what they were getting into, and this is part and parcel what this lifestyle is. Sex, drugs, and all of that stuff. And now what he's saying is that you have a group of people who came forward saying they are unhappy with what happened in these parties. And he's saying the reason they're doing that is not because of issues of consent, coercion, or violence, it's because they want money. That's how I read what his defense is. And to provide some understanding to the jury as to what was happening at these parties, I mean, he has to provide the jury understanding. Not the ordinary juror is not in a swinging lifestyle with 1,000 bottles of baby oil. So he's got to explain that to them.
What's your gut say? Is he going to be convicted or not?
I think he's going to be convicted.
Why?
I think he's going to be convicted because the testimony of a couple of the witnesses about coercion, which is psychological coercion, is going to drive the case within the context of, you have to understand.
Can you have psychological coercion? How is psychological coercion criminal?
Well, that's the way you would explain that. I'll turn it into lay people. Like, coercion in a psychological sense has to do about relationships with people. You have power over people. You could psychologically coerce somebody by sheer fact that you sit atop a firm, sheer fact that you have wealth and power. Now, you don't do that. What he was doing is that he was sitting atop of a recording empire. He was giving people opportunities to record music. He was reaching out to people saying, come to me. I'm going to make you a star. That gives you power. At that point, there is like a totally disparate relationship between you and the artist or you and the person. And then you use that power to create this aura of like opportunity and a future that is bright. And then you use that to have them have sex with you. That's coercion in the psychological sense.
Well, I mean, even if that wasn't enough for people, I think what I remember from reading things lately is that he was threatening to release sex tapes of his partners if they didn't do what he wanted.
That's another aspect.
That's direct coercion.
That's direct coercion. Yeah.
That's blackmail.
Well, that's extortion. Yeah.
Extortion.
And also you mentioned drugs. Like, can there be consent when they're drugged?
No.
Yeah.
No.
But what if they help procure the drugs?
It doesn't matter. The thing is like a lot of the times, like, these are like what I call like, well, you drank. The point is not that the person consensually took drugs. The point is that the person has lost their inhibitions to be able to say, I want to be intimate with you. And then you're saying, oh, you've lost your inhibitions. I'm going to push the boundaries of this relationship. That's the confusion that people like. That's what he was trying to do, is conflate these things.
I think he's going to be convicted because if there were a consensual swinging relationship, that is what that is. No, who are we to judge? It's been around since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
However, there are certain lines, and so, in my opinion, and I have followed this, the lines have been so breached. For example, I can understand if the former partners, they apparently called and got the male prostitutes, they arranged the different things, and they participated in the sex for the benefit of, the king god. But the lines were crossed, for example, when they were in pain, when they were exhausted and had to be given more drugs to continue, when they had a UTI, when they were on their period, when there were indicia of they clearly didn't want to do it, but they were still doing it. When it's that clear, to me, that's there's something coercive about it. It's not that it's sex between consenting adults anymore. There is some force being levied on someone to do something that they don't want to do, that is not just intimate physically, but dangerous. And they were doing it with prostitutes who were not wearing condoms.
Yeah. So those, to me, what those details are, I totally agree with what you just said about those details, what they reflect. Where I like to focus on is that before these events, these parties started, he sat down and he started to think about it. I'm going to have a party. I'm going to get all these people here. And I'm going to do that because I can. Because I have the money and I have the power. To me, that's the problem. That is, I mean, I'll be clear, that's the evil in the guy's mind. That he sat and thought about it. Like, those circumstances came up because he created the original environment to allow this stuff to happen. And what you look in and you see that surveillance video, the way he beats Cassie, you see who his character is. That's what's going to kill him. Because when people look at that video, if they see you capable of walking into a hallway of a hotel and beating a person, a woman, I mean, to me, it's like you're a coward. That's a coward's act. And so they're going to go in that deliberation room and they're going to go, that's a coward. That's an evil man. And what he did to these people, he has destroyed their lives. And he's blaming them because they participated. It's nonsense.
So I look at it that he obviously, you know, he has an origin issue. He is a dark person who can only get sexual gratification out of debasing other people and doing what he tells them to do, when he tells them to do it, how he wants them to do it. He needs a certain heightened level of stimulation by, you know, dominating other people and telling them what to do before he can get off. And so couple that with a person in his sphere who's at the top of the power chain.
Yes.
Who has a lot of opportunity to figure out, like, how is this going to work? And I don't know if Cassie was the first one. We don't know that.
Yeah.
But obviously this was a pattern that he established of how to accomplish his own sexual gratification that was pretty convoluted. And he couldn't do it on his own. He needed to be the master of his fantasies, which were not fantasies, they were real. And so in order to effectuate that, he had to use all of this staff, you know, to orchestrate it, to fly this person in and this person in, to, you know, love bomb this person, to do all this stuff. It wasn't a small effort.
No, it was an enterprise, it was a criminal enterprise.
I mean, all those pieces that had to be done to make that one night that was 3 nights. And I don't know what the makeup is of female to male in that jury, but any female who's going to be thinking of having nonstop intercourse with multiple men, not for 1 day or 2 days, but up to 3 days, for you not to think that that's going to be, that there is some kind of coercion involved where they're not even sleeping for, how long did they say they weren't sleeping for? Like a couple days, right? He would use stimulants to keep people awake.
Yeah.
But this is why I believe he sat back and thought about it.
I'll be right back.
This is what
Keep going.
Okay. But this is why I believe that he thought about this. He thought about, like, if I'm going to throw a party like this and there's going to be all these people here, what am I going to do if people get tired? What am I going to do if they're incapable of performing? Why do you think
I just think I think that the drugs just went along. He was notorious for parties. He had that white party that all the celebrities wanted to go to. So I think that was just part and parcel of the party lifestyle.
I mean, the party lifestyle looks very glamorous from the outside, but underneath it,
it's dark.
It's always been dark. I mean, I was a disco person, and I love going and dancing to the discos, but I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going on in discos.
Oh, and even, I mean, that's just continued now.
Of course.
All the time that I spent touring with rock bands, there were drugs everywhere.
Drugs and sex, I mean, it's as old as time. What's different here is the level the level of the, like you said, the enterprise, the army of people needed to make this happen. I feel like another piece of evidence that was, to me, compelling was that he would have his own staff clean it up. He could have had the hotel staff clean it up and pay.
He had to make sure there was no evidence left.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because it was so abnormal. Who has sex with baby oil on the walls and on the furniture and all over the floors and, stuff? If you had a blue light in there, I think it would be, horrendous. I hope I never stayed in one of those
You
rooms.
don't want to.
But the level of that's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
It's not normal. It's not. I don't think any swinging lifestyle person is worried that they were engaged in a criminal enterprise compared to what we just saw here.
No.
This is a billionaire's.
Oh yeah.
Billionaire's enterprise.
This is like cult leader level control.
To me, I don't see much difference between this and like a Jeffrey Epstein situation.
Oh yeah.
And I think that the difference is that if this behavior was done in the light of day by someone who didn't have the power and money that this guy had, they would be a registered sex offender. Plain and simple. And the reason these people get away with it is they have money and power. And to me, that is the highlight of this case. That a person like him is now being called out, and you can't like say anything because he can't now run behind his money. He can't run behind his power. And it took a lot of guts for this prosecutor to charge this case.
I feel like the prosecutors have done a better job than the defense lawyers. Again, from what I've read, because nothing's, the judge wouldn't allow this, unfortunately, to be televised, because, boy, that would be a blockbuster.
Yeah.
But from what I've read, but honestly, how would you defend a case like this? The evidence just keeps coming in and in and in. Like, what's your storyline? And it's moved around a little bit. So the defense lawyer has not been able, in my opinion, to ever draft a compelling narrative on this case. This is not a case of just two swingers.
When you cannot draft a compelling narrative as the defense, it's because what you're left with is that an acknowledgement of responsibility. When you are in a space, and I know this from experience, when you're trying to put up something that's just not carrying the day, it's because you just need to come in and say, I did something horrible, and I need to find a way to take responsibility for what I did, not on my terms, but on the terms of the people who I have harmed. Let me know those terms. That's why he didn't testify.
Well,
that's why somebody doesn't testify.
Look at the partners. So they present this just evidence after evidence after evidence. The prosecution, just all this evidence. And then the defense, in picking at, let's use Cassie, is have her read text after text after text of, her love and, oh, I can't wait to see you, and I'm really excited to do a freak off. And I mean, what is that strategy? What does that accomplish? I mean, I get it. You're trying to show that there's more dimension to this and that it's voluntary, but the jury knows that you're avoiding that videotape. I mean, don't you, when you pick at the periphery in a case like this, and you don't go right to the heart of the issues, which is the videotape.
Yeah, what happens when she disagrees with him?
Because to my knowledge, they didn't talk about the videotape at all with her, or very much at all. They wanted to focus on this other stuff that they wanted to focus on. But the jury's, when you don't address the elephant in the room,
Yeah.
that's always a sign
Then the
of a
elephant's the
problem.
biggest thing in the room. Yeah.
We know from trying cases that you have to get the worst piece of evidence and talk about it in opening statement.
Yeah.
You have to have a narrative for that. That was not a lover's quarrel. That was a brutalization of another person, seemingly for no reason, just to get her back in the room. I don't know what that was, and it was covered up, and he bought him off. Like, to ignore that piece of evidence or underplay it and try to talk about everything else, that is also how you lose a case. You have to address that bad. If you were a defense lawyer,
Yeah.
and you were a defense, you were
I was a defense lawyer.
You have that video. What do you do about it?
I would have played the video in my opening, and I would have said, you're going to hear from my client testify about this video, that this day was the worst decision in their life. But you don't judge people by their worst decision. You have to get to know them. And I would have them get up there, and if the defense is saying this was a party lifestyle that got out of control, the defense can't say that. The lawyers can't say that. He's got to get up there and tell the story and talk about it. And the fact that he didn't.
So we all know that a defendant should never testify except in certain cases. What makes this that certain
Because
case?
he doesn't have a rap sheet a mile long with a bunch of convictions. Because most of the times you have these criminal trials, you have somebody who's coming in with criminal convictions, they take the stand, and their convictions are then used to impeach them. In a case like this, if his defense, because I take the lawyer at his word, what he said in his opening and his closing, that this was a consensual, swinging lifestyle, and he feels terrible about what happened, then you have to put him on. And you have to tell him, like, you got to talk to this jury. This case rises and falls on you. You are the focus of this case, not the peripheral text messages. You know, not
because,
not this
and we
stuff.
all know that this guy is, you know, very verbal. He's a rapper. He can be...
And an actor.
Yeah, he can talk. He could present. He could have put himself on in his best hopeful light. I don't know how he would have shown up in cross-examination. I mean, that's the risk, right? Isn't the direct, it's the cross-examination.
Well, the cross-examination of a person,
But you can prepare them for cross.
you can prepare them for cross, but right now, if he were to get up, he would get crossed. Obviously, they would put all this stuff in front of him, but all you have to do is, if that's truly what he feels, that he did not mean harm, then it will come across. The reason why he's not taking the stand, and I agree, I'm not representing him, and I don't know, I am going to use my experience of years of giving advice to people about taking the stand, waiving the fifth, is that video captured a side of him that the public did not know. And he saw that now he didn't know that video was being recorded when he acted that way. So he's been outed. And he did not have the courage to get up and face that. That's why I say it was a cowardly act. Now, maybe what I say can be defined as a little sexist. I'll acknowledge it. But a man who hits a woman is a coward. Plain and simple. I will say that to the day I die. He's a coward. And the jury is now in that deliberation room going, he's a coward. And he didn't get up on the stand. He's going down. He's getting convicted. That's just what I feel. Yeah. What do you feel?
Well, I was going to say, don't you think also, I mean, him getting on the stand, just with that video, if you were able to get him riled up or angry, that in itself would prove your point.
That's why they didn't want him on there. But you know, his life is on the line in terms of where he's going to be spending it. And, you know, I think you have your party line, which is, I loved him, you know, this is me. This is
us.
Yeah, this is what we did. I loved her. I'm not perfect.
Yep.
You know, and don't try to deny it. that this happened, because obviously it happened. Just talk about love.
But morally, he's not there. He is not there. That's why he didn't testify. He's just not there.
I don't know.
And maybe, in the 7th or 8th year in federal prison, he'll get there. But the 15 years, I mean...
Guy like that has to come into this thinking he's invincible.
Huh?
Guy like that has to come into a proceeding like this thinking he's invincible and thinking about O.J. Simpson, like O.J. got off.
Okay. So back to the original point is that I think that when he's sitting there, it's not the acts, it's him thinking and imagining about this event he's going to create. And all of these people are going to be there doing these things for him. He's not thinking about them. He's thinking about himself. A complete lack of empathy. Because if you're a person who's like, I'm going to throw a party, I have all this money, I'm a famous person, you would want to throw a party where you go, I hope everybody enjoys themselves and has a good time and feels safe and celebrates what I'm doing, making beautiful music with people. That's not what he was thinking. That's the illness. That's like the defect. And he's not willing to confront that he is a narcissist. That all of this was about him. And he thinks it's about other people, and his lawyers are running out there making it about all these other people.
That's true. That's a good point. All right, well,
Yeah.
stay tuned. Let's see what the jury says.
Let's see what the jury says.